Hello, this is Ashley McHugh from Insurance Newsnet, and I will be the administrator for today's webinar, Meet ChatGPT, your personal marketing assistant. Moderating the webinar is John Fercucci, editor-in-chief at Insurance Newsnet. Our panel today includes Ron Wadley, owner of Insurance for Texans and Sprocket Expert Optimizations, and Rain Morgan, content marketing manager at policyadvisor.com. Ron is the owner of Insurance for Texans and Sprocket Expert Optimizations. Through these businesses, he helps individuals and companies buy insurance and market their independent insurance agencies. He is also an instructor for the Collective Agency Council. Rain is content marketing manager at policyadvisor.com, an award-winning digital life insurance distributor with dozens of top-ranking SEO blog articles. She is a former newspaper journalist who also works as a freelance content specialist, copywriter, and copy editor. Please ask any questions that you may have in the questions pane during our discussion, and we will get to as many as we can at the end. And with that, I'll turn it over to John.
Thanks, Ashley, and welcome to our panelists, Ron and Rain. ChatGPT is everywhere, but can it help agents and advisors build their businesses? While the intricacies of financial information may be a bit outside its expertise, at least for now, ChatGPT is being used successfully as a helpful time-saving marketing assistant for many agencies and practices. ChatGPT can help with everything from your email campaigns to content briefs, social media content, and even search engine optimization. Today, we'll talk to you about how you can make ChatGPT your own personal marketing assistant. Before we get started, let's get a sense of who in our audience is using ChatGPT in any capacity for their business. Ashley, there you go. You're launching our first poll. Thank you.
Yeah, so the question is, do you use ChatGPT for your business? Not at all. You're just beginning to explore it. You occasionally use it, or you use it often. All right, John, it looks like we have a lot to learn today. Most of the people have not used it out at all, or they're just beginning to explore it.
All right, that's not surprising. That's true, I think, across the board. We're all just getting our feet wet. Thanks to Rain and Ron for joining me today on this panel. I will say that we'll start off with some discussion, and then we'll take a look at a lot of this using some slides. So we'll illustrate how this all works. Let's start off by finding out how you came to start using ChatGPT. Rain, let's start with you. How long have you been using ChatGPT, and how and why did you first start to use it?
Well, so we actually started it about the end of last year, like maybe around November. Just as, more and more people were starting to use it, you were hearing it everywhere. We decided to give it a try and see. We previously used freelance copywriters actually as part of our content team, but we wanted to start trying out ChatGPT and see if we could kind of improve the way that we were doing it and kind of improve the process. So we've been using it since then.
Now, in light of the fact that so many people in our audience are new to this, was it easy to learn? Was there a steep learning curve? Did you watch YouTube videos?
I did watch some YouTube videos, but for the most part, it was trial and error. It was just jumping in feet first and trying things out, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work. And the learning curve was not very steep. The AI is very intuitive. So you kind of almost feel like you're speaking to someone. And I guess in a sense you are speaking to the AI, but it's very easy. The best way to get started is just to go for it and just try it out.
Ron, what about you? How long have you been using it, and how did that come about? I think in one of our earlier conversations, you thought that your competition might get a leg up on you if you didn't use it.
So that's true. The folks in my office have been using AI in various forms to help with content for about 18 months. We had been using some other platforms prior to ChatGPT going viral, for lack of a better phrase. So we started using it in the fourth quarter of last year specifically, both in its native application and then also because it was incorporated with some of the other SEO tools that we use. And talking with professional copywriters and marketers, their stance was largely, you either have to learn to use it or you get left behind. because people are going to integrate it. And so I'd rather be on the front of that curve than the back of it.
And did it take a long time to get comfortable using it? How did that go?
Not at all. So 18 months ago, some of the early iterations of AI specifically for content were pretty clunky. And what you see today is a much easier tool to use. As Rain said, it's almost conversational.
Yeah. Rain, let's start with you. What types of content do you use ChatGPT for?
Oh, well, we use it pretty much for just about everything. Now, I have to backtrack and say that we're still doing most of the writing ourselves in-house. What we use ChatGPT for is kind of like as an assistant almost. It's kind of the way we do it. But for everything that has to do with content, our blog posts, our emails, internal and external emails, social media posts, just about anything to do with content, we'll usually use ChatGPT for a bit of assistance with our own in-house process.
And Ron, what about you? What types of content do you use it for?
We use it for all the same things that Rain just mentioned. The thing that, so agents that work for me, one of the things that we have them do is to create content so that they can find their own voice. And some people will say, well, I don't know where to begin. I haven't written a paper since I was 20 years old in college or whatever. The great thing about ChatGPT, if you use it to do some research or think about those briefs, you can get past staring at a blank page and actually have some words there so that you can begin to move forward without that writer's block that we all are probably familiar with.
Oh, yes.
All right, so let's talk a little bit then about process. Rain, let's say you're planning to do a blog or a series of blogs. What aspects of that process can you use ChatGPT for?
Okay, sure. And so I'll just explain kind of from start to finish. So basically, we do our own research in-house. We have different tools that we use to actually research, what our target audience is, what they're paying attention to right now, or are there certain topics that we want to target for a certain month? For instance, is it Women's History Month? Is it Disability Awareness Month? So we have our own research that we conduct on the side separately, and we determine what articles we're going to write, what kind of campaigns we're going to run, and things like that. And then at that point is when we probably start to use ChatGPT. So for instance, for blog articles, we would have ChatGPT kind of automate the content brief basically to say, okay, I want to do an article on XYZ. Give me a content brief for this. In that way, it's something simple that even though we know content we're going to be using, ChatGPT helps with actually streamlining the process. So we don't have to spend that much time doing a content brief, and we can instead focus on just making more dynamic, unique content itself. Having said that, of course, we do the research. So we already know what we're going to include in that article. But having the AI help us also gives us some additional ideas and some additional outlooks that maybe we didn't consider. So that's kind of how the process works for us.
So when you're looking at the overall editorial calendar, how do you use ChatGPT there?
Well, yes. So, like I said, we have our own research, but at the same time, there are certain things that the AI might be able to signal to us that we didn't think about before. So, in terms of saying that we want to roll out certain articles in a time frame, the AI might suggest that, hey, why don't you also include this article? Or we may even ask for feedback, like, this is what we want to do. Do you think this could be improved a certain way? Just in terms of making things more timely and more relevant to our target audience.
And even though you've got an idea of what you want to do does it help you define topics?
Yes, it is definitely helpful for giving us some added topics. It's just like what Ron was mentioning earlier, like, the writer's block. It happens to everyone. Sometimes you think you've covered every single angle there is on a topic, and then the AI might say, oh, actually, here's another idea, and you hadn't even considered that. Just because as humans, we make mistakes, we forget things sometimes, things slip our minds. So it is good to kind of bounce ideas off of and just get some more inspiration that maybe had escaped you.
At the blog level, once you're down to that, or the topic level, can you use it for, let's say, an outline?
Yes, definitely you can. Now, the thing that I would say is, and I guess, maybe we'll discuss this a little bit more in depth, is not just to kind of run with whatever it gives you. certainly I think it's good to use it for ideas, and that's one of the main ways we do use it for. And it can help with some of that, but in terms of outlines, I think it's better to kind of, I guess, do it more in-house. Just because you will know your target audience more than the AI will. You will know what kind of flows better in terms of what H2, what H3 should go in which order that would make it make sense for your target audience. So you can surely use ChatGPT to give you some ideas on that, but I think that's something you might want to more direct yourself.
And
In
I,
that same vein, John, being on the sales side, and we do a lot of commercial insurance, and one of the things that we look at is what are those questions that the business owner or the decision maker in that business might ask us. We're seeing they're going to chat GPT and saying, what do I need to concentrate on for my insurance for my print shop? And that can give you some additional insight to plug into that outline after you've done that research and understand that target audience, just like Rain said.
yeah, I think one of the questions I have, and I think probably our audience has, is the level at which you can use this. Can you use ChatGPT to replace a writer at this point? Would you use ChatGPT to write a blog? So, Rain, what do you think about that?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Don't get me wrong, it is very useful, but it becomes very obvious even before we have the new apps out that are telling you what is AI written and what isn't, or trying to. It tends to be very obvious when something is AI written. The content just doesn't have that human voice behind it. And there are certain, and this is actually something we experimented with. We did try out asking ChatGPT to write an article for us, just to experiment and see how it went. We found, number one, the tone, it couldn't match the tone we were looking for. Like it would get too formal, or would get kind of, it wasn't hitting the right tone we were looking for. And then it had errors. We noticed factual errors, and in one instance, outright plagiarism. There was a full paragraph it took from like one of our competitor articles. And so like if we had just said, oh, look, this looks great, the grammar is wonderful, let's publish it, we would have been in a lot of problems because it was just pure plagiarism. And this is one reason why I think AI really isn't going to replace writers anytime soon. Another thing is in terms of being relevant. There are certain things that are, as humans, we're paying attention to world news. Like we know what's going on in the current environment. ChatGPT isn't really built up for that just yet. And in fact, it'll tell you if you ask it about current events, it'll say, "I'm an AI model. I don't have information past like 2005 or whatever have you." So for instance, in one instance, we wanted to reference something kind of relatable for our content. We wanted to like reference like a Netflix or the Met Gala or something. ChatGPT it fell short of that. It couldn't really give us what we were looking for, and so that human element is still very important, and it's what makes content really good and really stand out to your audience. So I don't think AI is to that level just yet.
Yeah, I think ChatGPT, I believe, only has a sort of a database up to 2021 or so. So you're right, it's limited in that way. Ron, what about you? Would you trust ChatGPT to write content for you?
To fully write content, no, just no. Like Rain said, that especially with a tone of voice, if if you're involved in the sales process and your name is on an article that's been published, it's not going to sound like you. And if you go into that meeting with that person and they reference that article and you've got a blank stare and it doesn't sound like you don't know what it was referencing, you're going to look dumb. And beyond just like current events, when you get into the specificity with respect to insurance, that varies from state to state. It varies from region to region. Being in Texas, we've got different rules on the coast versus where I'm at in Dallas, Fort Worth, versus what's out in West Texas. ChatGPT and the other AI tools are never going to be able to discern that for you. And so you've got to have that subject matter expert. Now, can you get some words on a page and then begin to play copy editor and make it appropriate and have your tone and interject those things? Absolutely. I do that all the time. But to just blanketly write an article is foolhardy at best.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about email campaigns. Rain, do you use it for email, and how does that work?
Yes, actually, that's one thing that we do use it for, particularly for doing our subject lines and preview texts, just because, well, we could sit down and spend however long it takes brainstorming what's the most clever, the most catchy way to put something, or we can just use ChatGPT kind of to help us with that. Again, we've done our own research. We know what topics we're going to roll out. We know what our audience is paying attention to, or if there's a certain product or service we want to promote, we know already what the content is going to be. But getting a little bit of help with actually streamlining the process, kind of making the entire content creation process a bit quicker, does help free up our time. So we can actually focus on the actual content of the email rather than just, what headline is going to make, is going to get the most attention. So what we'll normally do is I'll explain to ChatGPT, and this is one of the tips that I mentioned actually in terms of being very specific and giving context. What we'll do is say, I'm writing out an email, marketing email for an insurance company that's based on women empowerment. Can you give me 10 or 15 email subject lines and preview text for this email I'm writing? And just let it spit out a whole row of different options for you. Now you don't have to go with whatever it says. Like, you'll find that sometimes something just doesn't work, or it won't read well, whatever reason. You don't have to just run with whatever it gives you and just call it a day. We actually read through them, and we can sometimes mix and match. We might say, oh, okay, well, that sounds good, or oh, that part sounds good. And we can kind of like use them interchangeably, or it can just spark something else within us. Like, when you have that creativity, you can kind of see something that you didn't expect and get inspired by it. And you can kind of think, oh, okay, well, that's like a nice train of thought. Let me actually build off on that. So just being able to get like a good, like 10 to 15 options at the snap of a finger and then bounce off of that just makes it so much faster in terms of the marketing email. So that's one thing that we use it for a lot.
Now, subject lines are very important. You need people to, open the email. Are you satisfied with what it gives you? What's kind of the quality level of those?
I'm generally satisfied. So sometimes they just don't work. Sometimes they just fall flat. Sometimes it seems like it's repeating itself, or it kind of will just give you something that's so generic that it just doesn't make any sense. Where it'll say like, women's empowerment is so important. It's like, okay, yes, we know, like, what's the relation to insurance there? Like, it reads well, it's grammatic fine, but it doesn't make any sense. It's certainly not going to compel anyone to open up the email itself. So sometimes it falls flat. And this is why I'm saying you can't just take whatever it gives you and roll with it because it looks nice. Because you have to be able to think, what is the audience going to pay attention to? Does this sound relatable? So overall satisfied. And this is why we ask for multiple options, that we don't have to waste time rewriting the prompt every time or clicking regenerate. Just ask for multiple options at one time, and then you can go through the options they give you. And chances are, out of 15 options, you're going to find at least one that sparks an idea or that you can use or you can mix and match.
Great. Ron, what about you? Do you use it to do email campaigns?
We absolutely do. And I'm in the process of rewriting some of our email campaigns right now. And you can take an old stale email that may not have as great an open rate or click-through rate, depending upon what you're trying to accomplish. And you can use the AI tools to rewrite that email and update it, freshen it up, maybe interject some new information that you hadn't before, change that subject line, and then move forward to improve the efficacy of the email campaigns you already have, or expand upon them by looking for some additional ideas. If you, like us on our personal side, we saw a lot of home insurance. It gives me ideas on what to send on home maintenance tips, say in the fall or the spring. And you're providing value to your customers beyond just buy my insurance. And you can get some ideas that way.
Yeah. Now, when we think about using this, like social media could be another way to use it. And that's another area where humor or, being able to say something briefly and with some punch is important. Rain, do you use it for social media?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's another thing that, once again, we could sit down and spend, half the day brainstorming. What's the perfect caption? What's the perfect emoji that captures what I'm trying to say? But it's just so much faster if we can just use ChatGPT to give us a couple of options. And what we'll try to do is kind of be very, very specific. Like, we want a humorous tone about XYZ topic, please give us some hashtags, please include emoji, like just, and give us, again, 10 to 15 options that we can pick from. So again, we generally know the content that we're going to be creating. It's just streamlining the process, helping us with the content creation process. We're not spending half the day on something that really, could be better, time that could be better spent writing dynamic content. Sometimes with social media posts, we actually do use it for ideas too. Like we might know to use Women's History Month, for example, just because it's an easy one. We might say, okay, it's like we want to amplify life insurance and how it relates to women. What are some ideas that for a social media post we can do about this? We may already know like 2 or 3 that we're going to do, but then it'll give us a whole list of options. And again, we can just go through it and see if there's something we overlooked, or is there something that sparks some, another idea in our minds that we can bounce off of. So both for captions and sometimes for ideas for the content itself as well. We definitely use it for that.
Great. And Ron, you mentioned using it to rewrite, which is very interesting. What about, and Rain sort of referred to this as well, what about capturing a voice, a specific voice? Have you had much luck with that?
So we do use that. We don't use it as much for social media as we do it in other realms, but we can, so you can use inside your prompt that you want to summarize, like if you've got a blog article and you're going to push it through your social channel, summarize this so that it fits in a tweet, and use a use a Texan voice, or you can even plug a celebrity in if you really want to, and go down some of those paths. And it's not going to be perfect, right? You got to be Texan to understand Texan, but you can definitely get a long way down the path. And being able to condense those thoughts down, especially, Facebook, you've got more real estate than you do with Twitter. And so you can use it to make that content, that condensing mechanism for you. The other thing, if you're doing video, you can use it to create a vlog script that can subsequently turn into social content for you to push that out.
Actually,
Right.
Ron, I'm really glad you mentioned that, the condensing the tweets. Like I think anyone who's done content knows
Oh,
how
yeah.
frustrating it can be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's great.
Good point.
Those are really great tips. All right, why don't we do our second poll now, Ashley? Do you use AI applications other than ChatGPT?
I just launched it. We'll give folks a moment here to put their vote in.
All right, it's a simple yes or no. Do you use an AI application other than ChatGPT?
So actually about 74% said no.
Okay, so we as a group, we all have a lot to learn there. So that's great. All right, so at this point, what I want to do is talk about prompts. And the best way to do that, I think, is by showing some of these and talking our way through them. So let me share my screen. And you see my screen, Ashley?
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Okay, hang on.
There we go.
All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is Rain gave us some tips on writing prompts, and I want to go through those. And Ron, feel free to jump in here as well. So the first one is be as specific as possible. Specify things like your ideal word length, tone, what to and not to include, how you want it styled, etc. This helps increase your chance of getting the output that's ideal or close enough to work with. So talk a little bit about that, Rain. You're telling people to be very specific here.
Definitely. Have you switched the screen? It's still on the main page on my side.
All right, hang on a sec.
I'm glad you said that, Rain.
Oh.
I was thinking the same thing.
I was like, did my screen freeze? Hold on.
Can you see it now?
Still not just yet.
All right, so not quite quite sure why it's not going.
Okay.
John, I would almost exit out of it and go into presentation mode.
Yeah.
All I can see right now is like the very top of what I'm assuming is PowerPoint, the app. There we go.
Yes, there we go.
There
Yeah.
we go.
All right.
Perfect.
Yeah. Third time is the charm.
Yes,
All right. Do
exactly.
you see the first tip here?
Yes, I do. And yes, I'm
All
happy
right.
to talk about this some more.
All right.
So yeah, definitely. The entire point behind this prompt, or sorry, this tip is that you may have an idea in your mind, but the AI has no idea what you're thinking. I mean, even between two humans, the person that's sitting across from you likely has no idea what you're thinking. So you may go into ChatGPT and say, okay, give me an article on XYZ, and then just go with it. But the AI doesn't know what exactly you have in mind for that. What's your vision? So be specific to help it create your vision. Like, is there a certain tone you want? Is there certain things you don't want to be included? Are there certain words you want it to avoid? Do you want it styled a certain way? Do you want short sentences? Do you want short paragraphs? Do you want long paragraphs? Just these specific things will help it to kind of really hone in on exactly what your vision is for the content you're looking for.
Well, it sounds like at some points your instructions could be longer than what it actually gives back to you.
Often, very often, you may
If
have like an entire paragraph just a prompt for like 2 sentences.
if you're a parent, it's a whole lot like trying to tell a toddler what to do.
Good analogy. That's good. All right. So let's move on to the second one. And this is one you've mentioned, Rain, a number of times, asking for multiple options. Save the time of having to go back and update your original prompt multiple times. If you don't like the responses it gives to you, multiple options increase your chances of getting something that works or just getting some fresh ideas. So this is
Yes,
something you
exactly.
normally do as a standard.
Oh yeah, definitely for most cases, because I found when we first started trying it out, like I said, it was a lot of trial and error. So and this is how I learned that, be specific, number one, because I would go in and I'd ask for something and it would just fall completely flat of what I was looking for. So I would like rewrite it a different way, or I would hit regenerate and regenerate. And it was taking more time to get to what I was looking for than it would have taken me to just do it myself. So this is where I'm saying ask for multiple options one time, just to save yourself the time and the headache, because chances are out of like 10 or 15 options, you're going to get at least one that is useful.
So, and that's a good point too. You're asking for 10 or 15 options. You're not asking for like 3. You're really giving it a chance to give you something that you might like.
Yes, although this works more for short content than longer content. I
Yes.
wouldn't ask it to give me 25 articles.
Right. All right. The third one is giving context. The response you get if you explain your intentions first are different and more helpful than if you just start from scratch without providing context. So tell us a bit about that.
This was really interesting for me to learn, because I didn't expect the AI to actually be able to discern like different contexts for things, but it did. So to use a real example, I was writing an article about life insurance and suicide, very sensitive topic, obviously, and you want to handle it carefully. So I went to ChatGPT for a little bit of kind of marketing support, I guess. The article was written, but kind of asking, is this like politically correct, or is there a better way I can rephrase this? And it did not answer me. It was like, if you need mental help, please contact someone. Like, it took it very seriously. And I had to explain to it, like, no. I'm a content marketer. Like, I'm actually writing an article about this topic. And then the answers completely changed. Then I was like, oh, okay, now I understand. And then it actually started answering me instead of just kind of giving me a brick wall. But to me, that was mind blowing. I had no idea the AI could be able to do that. But that's what would help me to learn that, yes, if you give it the context of what you're trying to do, it actually will somehow, to some extent, understand and change its responses. So this is why I said, normally when we start out, we'll say, we are doing a campaign on XYZ. This is what we're looking for. Give the specific, specific instructions, and give me multiple options.
Great.
In
And
that
then,
same vein, if you specify the difference between a blog, a sales letter, a video script, you're going to get different output on the same subject. And so it can help you get to that finish line faster.
So that's a
Absolutely.
very good point. So when you're thinking about what you want, be extremely specific, put a lot of detail in. You can't over explain it, it sounds like, give it as much as you can.
Definitely. Definitely.
All right, and then finally, give examples until AI is capable of memorizing unique style guides. Giving it an idea of how you want something formatted or worded will help it give the output that you have in mind.
Yes, exactly. So different organizations obviously have their own style. They have their own tone of writing. They have even right down to whether or not they use the Oxford comma. Different organizations decide exactly what their style is. Um, AI can't memorize style guides right now because I tried this before. I used it for a marketing campaign and it was fine. It was wonderful. And then, we went to the drawing board. We had a discussion with upper management. The feedback was change it. So I went back to ChatGPT and I said, okay, remember those emails you gave me? Okay, now we want to rework them. And it had no idea what I was talking about. It was like, okay, well, here are some new emails. And I was like, no, but the style, we missed the style now. So it can't memorize that just yet. Hopefully in the future it'll make it better, but until then, what I've been doing is actually giving it examples. Like I'll copy and paste like the email or the blog post or whatever it is. We'll copy and paste it and say, okay, I want XYZ in this format. Here's an example of what we're doing. And then go ahead and follow the rest of the tips. Give it instructions about what I want, ask for 10 to 15 different examples, and of course explain that this is for an email campaign on XYZ, and then copy and paste the snippet below and ask for its output. And this is exactly what I was talking about before in terms of um, just kind of honing down on exactly what you want, and the prompt itself being like a whole paragraph just for a couple of sentences of output. But that's really how you get the most out of ChatGPT, is just giving it the best instructions you possibly can so that it can actually give you the output that you are looking for.
I see. Ron, do you do that as well? Do you give it examples?
We certainly will. And when you talk about something formatted in unique styles, it's an excellent place to get bullet points. So if you're thinking in SEO terms, bullet points are always good, right? Because it allows their algorithm to determine what it is you're talking about, what's important. And when you begin to give it those words and say, format it, condense this down into 3 to 5 bullet points, you're going to do that really quickly. And it's going to make your life easier to get that output.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. All right, let's go into prompts. We'll show some examples of the actual prompts. And Rain has a number of these that she's loaned to us so that we can show and tell. So this first one, Rain, is you're asking, give some witty responses for the Q&A section. Make the answers 2 to 3 sentences. Make the tone witty and down to earth. So you're being very specific there. So how did it do?
It did pretty well. So this is for a different product that we're working on right now. We're kind of in the process of reworking it. But these are simple things that anyone in insurance can answer very, very quickly. Do you need life insurance? What's death benefit? They're general questions. So instead of sitting down, and we actually had quite a bit of these questions to go through. So instead of sitting down and kind of going through all of them manually, it's just much easier to let ChatGPT give us a quick input on it. So we can just go back to actually doing the content that's more specific and more targeted. And I think it did pretty well. Like we weren't looking for anything too involved, just very, very basic, accurate answers to some simple questions. So it did very well here.
Okay, great. This next one, give me a short blurb of 3 to 4 sentences about life insurance with a love/Valentine's theme. Make it clickbaity, but also cute, romantic, and a call to action. Boy, you've got a lot of instructions there for. Start with show them some love. What's better gift than
What's a
peace
better
of mind?
gift?
What's a better gift
Ooh,
than peace of mind?
a couple of grammatical errors in here, but that's fine. It'll understand.
Yeah.
So this is what we were talking about earlier. Actually, Ron's point about like, the mental block that you just come up to, like no matter how good you are, there comes a point where your brain cannot process anymore that day. So again, we know what we're doing. We already have this for an email article. We already, sorry, an email marketing blast. We already know what the theme is. We already know what we're going to write. Like we already have some of it already written out, but we just need a little bit extra support with kind of pushing out the content. So again, just specifying what we have in mind. We're looking for just a very short blurb. We want the theme to be romance related, and we want to include insurance as well. So this one, I think it worked pretty well. Now we did not go with this exact blurb because it was kind of too long. So we went in again, like what Rod said, we did a little bit of copy editing and just kind of tailoring it more to what we had in mind to kind of suit our style more. But it was good. Again, instead of sitting there half the day waiting for the writer's block to pass, you can just use ChatGPT to kind of help you put a little bit more words down, and you can kind of work with that. So this one, again, we didn't use it exactly, but it did help. It still was a help, and it still saved us time.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about this is the way you're talking to it. You're using words like clickbaity, cute, romantic. So, in terms of how you want to communicate with ChatGPT, or I guess any of the AI equivalents, you can use those kind of terms and it understands them, which is really good.
Definitely. Now, it might always not get the mark because, of course, certain things are subjective. Like if we ask for something funny, what's funny to me may not be funny, what's funny to you. Like it can be a little bit subjective sometimes. So it's not always going to hit the mark. But it certainly can understand to an extent, and it will make an attempt to give you what, a general interpretation of that emotion is. So definitely you can use things clickbaity, cute, funny, serious, formal, like all of that it will actually pick up on and understand.
Yeah. Here, write a short social media post saying something like, need the best insurance quotes now, then look no further. Policy advisor has you covered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Include emoji, but make it very short, no more than 3 lines. So again, this is a very good example of the way you can talk to ChatGPT, ask it to include emoji. It does that. It kept it to the length you wanted. Again, so this was helpful, I take it.
Oh yeah, this is perfect. Like for a little short social media post that we really don't have to, spend too much time tailoring. Yeah, this is absolutely perfect. It did very well here. It gave us the hashtag, maybe not the hashtag we were looking for, but still it gave us the hashtag. It gave us very cute emojis. And the content works. Again, like we knew kind of the line of what it was that we wanted the social media post to say. We just needed some help quickly turning it into words. So this is perfect.
So if you wanted to take this a step further, John,
Yep.
if you've got a little bit of technical capabilities and you're monitoring, say, your Google business listing for reviews, and a review comes in from Anisha, happy client, that could start automation that could talk to ChatGPT, create a post, and then automatically post it to your social channels so that you don't even have to touch it.
Wow.
And include a
That'd be
link
cool.
to the review in that post. That's entirely possible if you know a little bit of trickeration on the technology side.
Very good. So there's a lot further you can take these tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
That's amazing.
And this is really about generating some questions, some ideas, things like that here. What kind of questions would a shopper have about a new online life insurance platform? Things like, is it safe? Will I have a personal advisor? Do I have to pay? And similar questions. Give me a list of 20. So here again, this is a fairly brief thing, but description, but you've given it an idea of what you want and some examples. And then you've asked for 20. How did it do? Do you remember how this did when it gave you back the 20 suggestions? Was it useful?
Yes, definitely. See, what we're doing here is not actually asking it for content, but kind of bouncing ideas off of it. And this is why I earlier referred to ChatGPT as kind of like a marketing assistant, because we're still the ones in the driver's seat. We're still the ones creating the content ourselves. We're still the ones doing the research to find out what topics we should write about or what topics we should target. We're still doing all that ourselves, but we just use ChatGPT to kind of streamline the process and then help us with ideas. So here, what we're doing is, again, this is for a different, like a new project that we're working on right now. It's still under wraps, but this is we're at the time we were kind of brainstorming what content we need to include in this project, and so we may already have some ideas, which is why we can give it examples of ideas we already considered. But we're looking for what other angles have we maybe not considered that we should also include, like you know what maybe we didn't think about certain things that a new customer might think about, but ChatGPT can be able to pull up a list very quickly, and we can just go through it and kind of pick and choose. Like, oh, okay, we've already done that one, we've done that one. Oh, we hadn't thought about that one, or oh, we can't use that one. We'll go to the next one. So using it for bouncing off ideas by giving examples and asking for a whole list, extremely useful. Very, very useful.
All right, let me just pop through a couple of these last ones here. I want to get to the next section here. So this is interesting. Give me some words I can use to fill in the X here for the sentence to be quirky, witty, or funny. So this is a way of using your kind of old math skills of the variables there and set up a query for ChatGPT and essentially let it fill in the blank to give you some ideas. So let me hit the next one or two of these quickly as well. I just want to give people some ideas of the breadth of what they can do. And again, this is another one where you're asking for a clickbaity subject line and preview text for a newsletter about women empowering themselves with life insurance. So again, very interesting way you phrase this, and you can use kind of the conversational tone with ChatGPT, and it will understand what you're asking. Here's the idea of rewriting that Ron had mentioned. Rewrite this thank you note for employees. Do not repeat the same language used. Make the tone casual. And I like this, a bit cheeky, but still professional. So again, very interesting way to aim for a tone and get it to rewrite something and be very specific. Don't repeat this, but give me some rewrites for this.
Exactly.
All right, so Ron, we've come to your section. Ron takes this, I would say, a step further. Ron, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the process that you're doing here.
So what we've got, John, I started with one of the things I mentioned earlier was if you were going to go meet with someone, you could see what might their top 3 questions be. Well, here's just an open-ended question. What are 3 basic concepts someone should know about auto insurance? And this is a way to get ideas to start some piece of content, whether that be a video, a blog, a page. You could even use it for formulating a sales page, a letter, an email, whatever you want to do. Here's 3 topics. So coverage types, deductibles, and premiums. Sounds really appropriate. It's fairly generic because my question was generic. So if you stopped here, you'd be left a little short. But what we can do is we can now take this same concept as we move through these other slides of prompts and see how we can actually get to constructing an article. So the next thing you could do is write a 750 word blog article about the 3 basic concepts Texans should know about auto insurance, written in an informative tone to educate. So I've taken those 3 basic concepts, right? And now we're going to see 750 words. Would I publish this? Not a chance on anything. There's got to be editorial work done here. But again, we've got the coverage types. We're going to see the deductibles and the premiums. And now you've got 750 words. You've got something to start with here. And I believe, John, the next, we've got the rest of the article. And one of the things that you see here, how about a headline, a controversial? So instead of using clickbaity like Rain did, I used the word controversial. And would I use this headline? Probably not, just because the overpaying for auto insurance that's been beaten so much the horse is out of the glue factory, if you will. But it's a way to get that process moving.
Yep.
But what we typically do, rather than just stay in the ChatGPT, is we use a software that has ChatGPT embedded in it called Phrase. And so I'm going to take that same sort of topic and we'll step through how you could go about using this additional technology that incorporates ChatGPT to make your life easier. So we're going to start with a search query, and this is going to be very SEO driven because that's how I feed my own personal agency, is through local SEO. So 3 basic concepts about auto insurance. Google's going to love that. So are the other search platforms that you might use. So if we hit the next one, John, what it's going to do, you see on the right the word outline, and it's going to select headings from search result and generate heading ideas with AI. So what the software does is it goes and collects the top 20 websites, web pages that relate to that search query. It compiles all of the metadata, the data about the pages, along with those headings. And if we hit generate heading ideas with AI, what's going to happen is we're going to start to see what headings are being used in these top 20 search articles. That's going to be indicative of information that I'm going to want to include if I want to rank for this search query. And you can see definitions, comprehensive coverage, personal injury protection, collision coverage, gap insurance. These are all headings that those pages are using. Now there's a little red X there in the corner of the box. You could delete out any heading you didn't want to work with, or you could leave it there. You can rearrange the order if you wanted to. You'd probably want to put collision and comprehensive close together and put PIP someplace else. But this allows you to get that order that can be turned into a draft copy. So the black button there in the left column says generate draft. They're going to take all of those headings, and ChatGPT is going to put this into a draft form for us. So the next step, John, if you hit the next slide, is going to take us to the tone that we want to use for the article. And Rain was doing that inside of the prompts. Phrase is going to incorporate that in for us on a selection basis. And so once we hit that, can we move on to the next slide, John?
We are, so I'm not sure you're seeing the same slide that I'm on here.
I'm still on generate draft. So I'm going to talk and I'm going to hope I can hit it from the cuff.
All right.
When you get to that last, are we on where it has all of the word count and the green boxes?
The word count, hang on a sec. Yes.
Okay. So after you hit that generate draft and you've given it the persuasive tone, educative tone, however you want to do it, ChatGPT is built into this platform, and it's going to write about each of those headings because we asked for an introduction and transitions. And we've got over 3,000 words there. I would never write 3,000 words personally about auto insurance. It's a commodity almost now. Carriers don't want me to say that, but it's true. But that's a very prolific amount of words to discuss an auto insurance policy. So you're going to have to bring it in. You're going to have to make it specific to your region. If you think about bodily injury and property damage limits on liability, those are going to vary from state to state. What I've got as minimum requirements in Texas is different than Arizona, which is different than Wisconsin. And so what's going to happen is it's going to produce all these words, but Phrase's awesome part is they're going to take the keywords that help those 20 pages rank for this topic, and they're going to tell you whether or not you've included that keyword. So one of the things that people struggle with is, how do I know what keywords to put in my article? Phrase is going to make that easier for you using this AI platform that told you that's telling me I have 28 instances of comprehensive coverage. Probably a few too many, but it is an important word. And it's also going to give you an optimization score there across the top where you see 49%. That's good. We tend to try to go higher with our optimization score when we write an article, but that yellow line tells you how you compare to the average of those top 20 pages. So the further away from that line you go to the better your chances are for ranking. And if you're including appropriate call to actions in your article and you're trying to source clients, that's how you're going to convert, get those prospects and be able to sell.
That's great. And this, you've got it selected to long tail keywords. Talk a little bit about that, Ron, if you would.
Sure. So when most people, when they think about SEO, you know that Geico and all of the other majors, and I'll say them because they don't sell through either a captive or independent channel, they're spending billions of dollars to control the word insurance. Me as a local agency, I play in what's known as local SEO. So I'm trying to affect my local market and I'm looking for long tail phrases. So think instead of looking for just auto insurance in a search bar, best auto insurance to pay claims in Texas.
Right.
That's a long phrase. It's fairly specific. It's something that those massive companies that are spending billions of dollars are not going to try to attack like an local agent like myself can, or I'm going to work in local geography, specific things that matter to my location. And those long tail phrases are much easier for me to compete against those massive corporations that are spending all the money on all the copywriters and everything else. I can leverage AI. I can leverage tools like this. We can go after long tail phrases. And candidly, that's how we supply our producers leads in my office.
Right. That makes perfect sense. All right. So that takes us to the end. And at this point, we can take some questions from the audience, Ashley.
All right, that was a lot of good information. One of the questions I got the most was, can you just explain, how do I gain access to this? Is there a cost involved? Where do I start?
Yeah, I know for ChatGPT, I believe it's $20 a month for their professional version that allows you to get in and use it all the time. If you can use their free version, but you're subject to whether or not it's being overutilized and is available. Ron, what about Phrase? What's the cost for using
Phrase has multiple paid tiers. We have their SEO add-on package, which gives us access to some additional functionality. Google now has Bard, which is a direct competitor to GPT. It's still free if you can get in on they're not allowing, it's my understanding they're not allowing paid workspace users into it. But if you have a private Gmail address, you can typically get into their beta testing program right now and it's free. So that's an alternative. But Phrase does come with a cost.
Yeah. But, from what you've shown us, it's very interesting because the SEO research you're able to do with that, all the programs I'm aware of for SEO research also come with the cost. So you're kind of getting dual duty there. What other questions do we have, Ashley?
Yeah, so the next one we got quite a bit was, is it able to create a form or provide a worksheet? Is that something that you can do, or is it strictly for like email and blog content?
And try using it for a form, but I don't see why it wouldn't be able to. I mean, it most likely could probably give you the questions for a form. You may have to format it yourself, but I don't see why it wouldn't be able to, but I haven't personally tried it.
So I've actually done some of this. Our CRM has ChatGPT embedded into its functionality, and we can spit back tables and forms and charts using it that way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. ChatGPT and other AIs are being embedded in so many other products. And I think, if you use, for example, ChatGPT just to get your feet wet and all that, the other thing to do is look at the applications that you're using normally in your business and see which of those have an integration and explore that. I think that's a really good thing that Ron's been doing, as he's shown us today, and it's worth checking that out.
Yeah,
Great.
actually, because we use Phrase as well, and I had no idea it was integrated with ChatGPT. Like we mostly use it for the optimization, so I didn't know that myself.
That's
Thanks, Ron.
great. So I wasn't the only one in the group that learned something today. That's good. Thank you.
Speaking of Phrase, are there other programs that utilize ChatGPT that you're using, or are you just sticking to ChatGPT as well as Phrase, I guess is the question.
So I use HubSpot for CRM. They've developed what's called ChatSpot, and that's where we're leveraging ChatGPT. That said, because my Google Analytics is integrated with HubSpot, I can actually do queries on web traffic, organic search terms, things of that nature. That is not touching Phrase at all. I would be stunned if Bard doesn't have something like that fairly quickly, because getting that embedded with all of their data, because for better or for worse, we're all using Google Analytics on our websites. If you're using the Google ad platform, being able to query in and get that data back using that prompt methodology is going to be huge. Jasper's out there. It does a lot of the same stuff that Phrase does without the SEO optimization. Both platforms will help you write headlines, outlines. I used it yesterday to construct the meta description for a blog entry, because it has to be 155 word or 155 characters to help with the SEO. So I use it in those realms as well. And that's coming through those same platforms.
That's actually a good point, bringing up Jasper AI. We experimented that before we went on to ChatGPT. We haven't gone back since, just because we kind of really didn't really see the point to it. But yeah, no, Jasper AI is also a really good alternative for people who maybe don't want to use ChatGPT or can't access it. Jasper AI is pretty it's pretty good as well.
Yeah, it's pretty robust.
Yeah.
Great. Have either of you used ChatGPT to do any kind of translation to another language? And is that something that it offers?
I have not.
I'm going to plead complete ignorance on that. I struggle to speak English well, so.
No worries. I think we have time for another question. Oh, Rain, there was a moment where you had mentioned saving the prompt history. Is there a benefit to doing that versus not doing it?
Yes. And this is because, again, giving context whenever I give context in a certain prompt, I find that it can't save a style guide, but it can actually save what I'm working on. So big example, I can't reveal exactly what it is, but a project we're working on right now is kind of starting from scratch, like very, very top to bottom kind of thing. And so when I first started asking for different content, I explained, okay, this is for this project, and this is what we're trying to accomplish, things like that. And I found that in that saved prompt, it actually remembered my original intent. So even though in additional prompts I didn't repeat that this is for this project XYZ, it somehow remembered that very, very first time I explained it, like when I first started that prompt. So yes, there is a benefit to saving your prompts. Like you'll see ChatGPT has different options now. You can actually save it. And yes, there is a benefit to that. And so whenever I have additional content I need for that project, I'll go into that saved prompt and I'll ask for it. Again, I'll follow my usual tips. I'll give examples, but you don't have to give so much content because context, because it actually remembers in that saved prompt.
Excellent.
I hope that it was answering the question.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. We do have time for about one more here. Oh, this is actually a great question. Do you worry about the confidentiality of the material that you give to ChatGPT?
Yes, all the time. I'm always like, I give examples, but I try not to give like too much detail. And I'm always like, I really wonder. And actually, this is a good point, because we had one of our advisors had gone to ChatGPT to kind of ask something, and it gave him an answer from our website. It was like, well, according to Policy Advisor XYZ. And I was like, where did you get that information from? So I'm always a little bit paranoid when I put in information in. I really don't know like to what extent. So I don't put information like personal information about like clients, or like I don't go too details about like company secrets, just because I'm not entirely sure of where that information is going.
That's fair.
I think there is an option in ChatGPT to not have it utilize your information or share it or something. So I can't tell you offhand, but I think there may be an option of that kind. So that's something to look for, not only in ChatGPT, but any of the other programs you use too.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that, but I'm still a bit paranoid.
As we all should be, yes.
For sure.
All right, John, that is all we have time for today.
All right, thank you, Ashley, and thanks to our panelists, Ron and Rain. Terrific discussion. I learned so much, much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Yes, thank you for attending today's webinar. You will be receiving a recording via email, and please keep an eye out for information on the next webinar in this series, which will be titled Annuities Unleashed, What Lies Ahead, and that will be June 7th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.